There are some people in life you tolerate, not because you like them, not because they bring anything meaningful into your world, but because they exist in the orbit of someone you love, and that makes them unavoidable. For me, that person was Jenna. Technically, Jenna was my wife Claire's best friend. They had known each other since college, survived breakups together, shared apartments, and all the milestones that tend to cement lifelong friendships. On paper, she was important. In reality, Jenna was a lot. She had a way of talking that felt like a compliment wrapped in barbed wire, the kind of person who could smile while making you feel slightly smaller. It was subtle enough that calling it out made you sound crazy, but obvious enough that you never quite relaxed around her. Still, I kept my opinions to myself. Claire cared about her, and that was enough. Until the wedding. Now, I don't hate weddings. I really don't. Give me a nice ceremony, some decent food, maybe a couple of drinks, and I'm good. But Jenna didn't do nice and simple. No. Jenna did production. Her wedding wasn't a day. It wasn't even a weekend. It was an event. A 3-day, multi-part, outfit-changing, schedule-dominating marathon that somehow required more planning than most military operations. It started on a Thursday night. The invitation said, intimate dinner. That sounded harmless enough. Claire and I figured we'd show up, eat, socialize for a bit, and head home in a reasonable hour. We were wrong. The dinner started at 9 p.m. 9. On a weekday. By the time everyone arrived, sat down, and Jenna made her grand entrance like she was accepting an award, it was already pushing 10. Then came speeches, then more speeches, then a drawn-out meal where every course felt like it needed its own introduction. 3 hours later, we were finally done eating. I leaned over to Claire. We're heading out, right? She hesitated. That was my first warning sign. Well, she said slowly, there's dancing after. Of course there was. Jenna clapped her hands like an overexcited event planner. Okay, everyone, let's head to the dance floor. I looked around. People were already exhausted. Some were checking their phones. A couple of older relatives looked like they were reconsidering every life decision that led them here. I turned back to Claire. We're not staying for that. She nodded, clearly relieved. Yeah, we can't. Work tomorrow. So we said our goodbyes, gave polite smiles, and left. That should have been the end of it. But Jenna doesn't let things go. The next day we showed up for brunch, because apparently day 2 also needed multiple events. The moment we walked in, Jenna spotted us and made a beeline over. Oh my God, you guys missed so much fun last night, she said, her voice dripping with exaggerated enthusiasm. That's great, Claire said politely. Jenna leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to make it feel like a secret. Literally everyone stayed, even my grandma danced, and the kids. It was so wild. I smiled. Not a real smile. One of those tight, controlled ones you use when you're choosing not to engage. Sounds like a great time, I said. Claire squeezed my hand under the table. She knew. She always knew. But we brushed it off. Chalked it up to wedding stress, excitement, whatever excuse people use to justify bad behavior. Then came the ceremonies. Plural. 2 different ceremonies in one day, each with its own theme, its own dress code, its own expectations. By this point, Claire had gone through multiple outfits, multiple rounds of hair and makeup, and was running on pure determination. I was tired. She was exhausted. But we stayed. Because that's what you do, right? You show up. You support your friends. You push through the inconvenience because relationships matter. By the time day 3 rolled around, we were running on fumes. The final event was another brunch. At this point, it felt less like a celebration and more like a test of endurance. But Claire insisted we go. It's the last thing, she said. Then we're done. So we got up early, again. Claire got ready, again. 4th outfit. 4th round of makeup. 4th time trying to meet an unspoken standard that no one had clearly defined, but everyone seemed to feel. We arrived right on time. Jenna was at the entrance, greeting guests like a celebrity at a red carpet event. When she saw Claire, her face lit up, but not in a warm way. Oh, hi, babe, she said. Then she looked Claire up and down. There was a pause, just long enough to feel intentional. Wow,
she added, tilting her head slightly. You look comfy. It was subtle. To anyone else, it might have sounded harmless, maybe even nice. But tone matters. And her tone said everything. Claire smiled. Because of course she did. Thanks. But I felt it. That shift in the air. That tiny moment where something kind of ugly slipped through the cracks. I looked at my wife. Really looked at her. She looked great. Effortlessly great, honestly. But more than that, she had tried. She had showed up for all of this. Put in the time, the effort, the energy. And Jenna reduced it to comfy. Something about that stuck with me. Claire brushed it off like she always did. It's just stress. She told me later. Weddings make people weird. Maybe. Or maybe some people are just like that. And weddings just give them a stage. That was the moment I made a decision. Not a loud one. Not something I announced. Just a quiet, personal shift. If Jenna wanted to play that game, those subtle little digs disguised as compliments, then fine. I could play too. The difference? I had patience. And I had time.
I didn't start right away. That's the thing about people like Jenna. They thrive on immediate reactions. Eye rolls, awkward silences, forced laughs. That's where they get their confirmation that their little comments landed exactly where they wanted them to. So I gave her nothing. For a while. Life moved on after the wedding. Claire went back to her routine, work picked up for both of us, and Jenna returned to her usual role, floating in and out of our lives through group dinners, birthdays, and the occasional weekend get-together. And every now and then she'd drop one of those comments again. Always light, always deniable. Claire, I wish I could be as low maintenance as you. You're so brave wearing that color. You always look so relaxed. Each one delivered with a smile. Each one just sharp enough to leave a mark. Claire, as always, chose grace. She'd smile, laugh it off, maybe even agree. Yeah, I guess I am pretty low maintenance, she'd say, brushing it aside like it didn't matter. But I noticed, and more importantly, I remembered. So I waited. Because timing is everything. The first opportunity came about a month later at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. Nothing fancy, just a casual restaurant, a long table, drinks flowing, conversations overlapping. Jenna arrived late. Not dramatically late, just enough to be noticed. Enough that people had already ordered appetizers. Enough that the rhythm of the evening had started without her. She slipped into her seat with an exaggerated sigh. Traffic was insane. No apology, just an explanation. Claire smiled. Glad you made it. Everyone moved on. But I didn't. I leaned forward slightly, keeping my tone warm, conversational. I honestly admire that, I said. Jenna looked at me, a little surprised. Admire what? That you don't stress about being on time, I continued. I wish I had that mindset. I'm always worried about being late, but you just show up whenever. It's kind of freeing. There was a pause. Just a fraction of a second. Then she smiled. Oh, thanks? But I saw it. That tiny flicker behind her eyes, the gears turning. Was that a compliment? Or not? And that was the moment I knew this was going to work. I didn't overdo it. That's the key with this kind of thing. You can't go too hard, too obvious. It has to live in that gray area, the same space Jenna had been operating in for years. So I let it breathe. A few weeks later, we were at another gathering, this time at someone's house. Casual, relaxed. People in jeans, sitting around with drinks, music playing softly in the background. Jenna walked in wearing a loose sweater and leggings. Completely normal. Totally fine. She greeted Claire first, then turned to me. Hey, I said, smiling. I looked her over. Not in a creepy way, just enough to mirror the exact energy she'd used on Claire at that brunch. Wow, I said. You look really comfortable. There it was. The word. Her smile froze, just for a second. Then it came back. Thanks? Seriously, I added, keeping my tone sincere. I love that you don't feel like you have to try too hard. It's refreshing. Claire nearly choked on her drink. She turned away quickly, pretending to cough. Jenna laughed, but it was a little tighter this time. Yeah, I mean, it's just a casual thing. Exactly, I said.
Not everyone can pull that off. And then I moved on, started talking to someone else like nothing had happened. That's another important part. You don't linger. You drop the comment, then exit. Leave them alone with it. Let it echo. After that, it became a pattern. Not constant, not predictable, just consistent enough. At a group brunch one Sunday, Jenna showed up wearing heavy makeup, clearly more effort than usual, maybe a new routine, maybe just trying something different. I noticed. Of course I did. And when she sat down, I smiled. "You know what I like about you?" I said. She looked at me cautiously now. "What?" "You don't care about vanity," I said. "Like you can go full natural or do something more done up, and it's like, you're not trying to impress anyone. That's rare." Claire kicked me lightly under the table. Jenna blinked. I guess. It's a confidence thing. I continued, not needing validation. That one lingered longer than the others, because it sounded almost thoughtful. But there was just enough ambiguity to make it uncomfortable. Was I saying she usually didn't try? Was I saying she looked better natural? Was I implying this was trying? She couldn't quite land on an answer. And that uncertainty, that's where the magic lives. Over time, I started to notice changes. Subtle at first. Jenna began arriving earlier to things, not always on time, but closer. She started putting more effort into her outfits at casual gatherings. She paid more attention to how she was being perceived. And most interesting of all, she started watching me. Not in an obvious way, but I'd catch it. Those quick glances after I spoke, like she was trying to read between the lines of everything I said, trying to figure out the angle, trying to decide if she was being complimented or quietly insulted. Claire noticed too. One night after we got home from dinner, she turned to me. "Okay," she said, crossing her arms. I played dumb. "What do you mean?" "With Jenna," she said. "Don't act like you don't know." I smiled. "I've been perfectly nice to Jenna." "That's the problem," Claire said. "You're too nice. It's weird." I laughed. "I'm just giving her the same energy she gives you." Claire shook her head, but there was a hint of a smile. "You're impossible." "Am I wrong?" I asked. She hesitated, then sighed. "No." That was all the confirmation I needed. Because here's the thing. I wasn't doing this just to be petty. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly, I was doing it because someone needed to hold up a mirror. Jenna had spent years operating in this space where she could say whatever she wanted, as long as she wrapped it in just enough politeness to avoid consequences. She had never had to question it. Never had to sit with that uncomfortable feeling of, wait, what did they mean by that? Until now. And the best part, I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to start a fight. I didn't have to be the bad guy. All I had to do was smile.
By the time it happened, it almost felt inevitable. You can only sit in that kind of tension for so long before something gives. For months, I had kept things subtle, controlled, strategic. Just enough to keep Jenna off balance, never enough to make myself the obvious villain. And for a while, it worked perfectly. But people like Jenna, they don't like not understanding the game. At first, she adapted. She became more punctual, more polished, a little more guarded with her words. Those little barbed compliments she used to toss around so casually, they became less frequent. Not gone, just measured, like she was testing the waters. But the dynamic had changed, and she knew it. The shift became obvious at a dinner party one Friday night. It was at our place this time, something small, just a handful of friends. Claire had spent the afternoon cooking, making everything just right. The lighting was warm, music low, the kind of evening that usually feels easy. Jenna arrived exactly on time. That alone told me everything I needed to know. She stepped inside looking put together, more than usual for something this casual. Hair done, outfit carefully chosen, makeup just noticeable enough. She greeted Claire with a hug. "This smells amazing," she said, and for once it sounded genuine. Then she turned to me. "Hey, hey," I said, smiling. There was a pause, a small one, but loaded. I could feel it, the expectation, the anticipation, like she was bracing for something, waiting to see what I'd say. And for the first time in months, I said nothing. No comment, no observation. Just a normal, polite interaction. And that threw her off more than anything I'd done before. The whole night she kept glancing at me, subtle, but frequent, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I didn't give it to her. Not yet. Dinner went smoothly. Conversation flowed, people laughed, glasses refilled. Claire looked relaxed in a way I hadn't seen around Jenna in a long time. And Jenna? She was trying. That was the surprising part. She listened more, interrupted less, even complimented Claire. Genuinely, without that familiar edge. "You always host so well," she said at one point. "I don't know how you do it." Claire smiled, a little surprised. "Thanks." I watched the exchange carefully. Because this was different. For a moment, I wondered if maybe that was enough, if maybe the mirror had done its job, if maybe Jenna had actually seen herself and decided to adjust. But then it happened. It was small. Of course it was. We were clearing plates, people shifting into the living room, the evening winding down. Claire had changed into something more comfortable, a soft sweater, her hair loosely tied back. She looked at ease, happy. And Jenna noticed. She tilted her head slightly, that familiar expression creeping back in. "Oh wow," she said lightly. "You changed already? That was fast." Claire laughed softly. "Yeah, I just wanted to be comfortable." Jenna smiled. There it was again. "Well," she said, her tone just barely off, "at least you're consistent with that." The room didn't react. No one ever does to comments like that. But I felt it. Claire felt it too. I could see it in the way her shoulders tightened just slightly before she forced a smile. And just like that, I knew. Nothing had really changed. Jenna had just adjusted her timing. So I set my glass down. And this time, I didn't keep it subtle. I smiled, calm, easy, the same way I always did. "You know what I appreciate about you, Jenna?" I said. The room quieted just a fraction. She looked at me, cautious now. "What?" I leaned back slightly, casual. "You are incredibly consistent," I said. "Like no matter the setting, no matter the situation, you always manage to slip in a comment that makes things just a little uncomfortable." Silence. Real silence this time. Not the kind people ignore. The kind they feel. Jenna blinked. What? I kept my tone light, almost friendly. "It's actually kind of impressive," I continued. "Most people second-guess themselves, filter a bit, but you just go for it." Claire's eyes widened slightly. "Hey." But I shook her head gently. "No, it's fine," I said. "I just think it's better to be honest, right?" Jenna's face had changed completely now. The confusion was gone, replaced by something sharper. "You think I make people uncomfortable?" she asked. "I think you sometimes dress criticism up as compliments," I said. "And for a long time, no one called you on it." The words hung in the air. There was no hiding from them now. No ambiguity, no gray area. Just truth. Jenna let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Wow, okay. That's coming out of nowhere." "Is it?" I asked calmly. She looked at Claire. "Do you feel that way?" Claire hesitated. That moment, the pause, said everything. Jenna saw it too. "Oh my God," she said, her voice tightening. "You do." "It's not like that," Claire said quickly. "It's just sometimes the way you say things." "The way I say things," Jenna cut in. "I know," Claire said softly. And somehow, that made it worse. Jenna looked back at me. "So what? This has been your plan? Taking little digs at me for months." I didn't flinch. "I gave you the same kind of compliments you give others," I said. "Nothing more." Her eyes narrowed. "That's not the same." "Why not?" I asked. "Because I don't mean it like that," she snapped. I tilted my head slightly. "Neither did I." That landed. Hard. For a second, she had nothing. No response, no comeback. Just the weight of her own logic turned back on her. The room felt smaller now. Tighter. Jenna looked around, like she was suddenly aware of everyone watching, even though most people were carefully pretending not to. "I think I'm going to go," she said finally, grabbing her bag. "Jenna," Claire started, but she shook her head. "No, I get it." She moved toward the door, then paused. For just a second. "You could have just said something," she muttered. Then she left.
The door closed behind her with a quiet click. And just like that, it was over. For a moment, no one spoke. Then someone cleared their throat, muttered something about getting more drinks, and slowly the room started to move again, like a machine restarting after a brief shutdown. Claire turned to me. That was a lot, I admitted. Yeah, I admitted. She studied my face. Are you okay? I nodded. Are you? She thought about it. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. A little relieved, she said. And that was all I needed to hear. Jenna didn't show up to the next few gatherings, or the ones after that. When she finally did, months later, things were different, quieter, more careful, not perfect, but real. And me, I stopped. No more compliments, no more games. Because in the end, the point was never to win. It was just to make sure she finally understood how it felt.